someone who has been through this whole boutique journey since really at the beginning, through the boom, through the bust, through the pandemic, and into what happens next. Let's welcome Kari Saitowitz, who's here in New York City, which is it's the founding hub of boutique fitness, really, when you think about it. We've just finished an incredible day with just legends of industry sharing everything, and that's been one of the themes. Everyone's got arms around each other, they're just sharing everything they have, because the biggest story is that we come back. Tell us a bit about Fhitting Room, which is an amazing brand, and we work with you also, and we love that. Tell us about, how hard has it really been? Give us the reality. No one talks numbers. New York's been horrific, so just give us that, and then we'll talk a little bit about future plans.
Absolutely, yeah. So New York is the epicenter of boutique fitness, but it was also the epicenter of COVID. So there was that. So Fhitting Room is a high-intensity interval training and strength training studio. I say kettlebells are our superpower. That's our big differentiating feature, is doing kettlebells safely in group classes. I started the business in 2013 in terms of studio doors opening. I personally worked on it for a year to get to that point. But so we've had studios open for 9 years. We had 3 studios reopen after COVID. I did just 1 month ago, after giving, we were open for about a year as of a month ago, post-COVID, closed one of the studios. I'll talk about why. But we also do have a subscription-based on-demand platform, which was launched pre-COVID. That was the summer of 2019 project. We launched live virtual classes 3 days after we closed our doors due to COVID, but they're still going strong, so we continue that, and we're opening our first suburban location next week in New Jersey, and it's a different business model, which we'll also talk about.
Okay. Sounds great. And when are you coming to LA? Come on, you got to go bi-coastal. You got to do it.
As soon as profit returns. Yeah. How about that?
That's a great. Tell us about profit. Are you prepared to share us some numbers?
Yeah, I'm happy to share.
Can I just jump in a little bit? When you started, what was it like then in contrast? Because I don't think you had much competition in the boutique space then, did you? You was telling us last night.
Yes, you're correct. So when I first started, one of the first exercises I did was a benchmarking study of what competitors priced their product at. And so I think my spreadsheet had 7 lines on it, maybe. There was 1 Barry's boot camp location in New York City, 2 Soul Cycles, 2 Flywheels, 2 Physique 57s, and that may have been it. And so today, I believe ClassPass would tell you that there are something like 3,000 fitness stores in New York City, or something to that effect. I think it was 1,000 not too long ago, but I think there's been a huge explosion even since then. So from a competitive standpoint, there was no ClassPass when I started this business, so everybody who was coming in the door was buying direct at no discounts. There was very little competition, so if you had a clean space and a great class, you had full classes. And so, yeah, totally different environment versus where we are today.
And instructors, what was that like back then? Were they fairly easy to come by?
Well, so instructors, for me, with our modalities, every one of our instructors has to be a certified personal trainer. That's actually one of the other big differentiators between Fhitting Room and a lot of other classes. And so the best hiring grounds were big box gyms. So I used to search social media and troll people who were hashtagging kettlebells or kettlebell workout or anything with kettlebells, and then looking at their places of employment. And if they were at a big box gym and they loved kettlebells, they were my sweet spot, because I knew that our business model could pay them more than what the box they were working at was paying them, and I could also offer them a space to do their personal training sessions for free, so long as there were no classes in session. So that was like a big recruiting carrot. Yeah.
Wow. So perhaps can you peel back some of the layers, and how was COVID? You mentioned you were going to talk about the club that you closed, the studio that you decided to close, and then you decided to open elsewhere. Tell us about that and tell us some numbers around that.
Yeah, of course. So in December of 2019, which if anybody can remember back that long, it was pre-COVID, but very close to COVID, I held what we called a Fit Rally. So it was an internal full business team meeting to roll out our growth strategy, which was called Paint the World Green. So green is Fhitting Room's signature color. And I shared a lot of data on the industry with my team and some insights. And the conclusion was basically that I love our experience. I think that what we do really well is train trainers and program incredible classes and build community and brand around it. But my conclusion was that can be done inside many four walls, and that the standalone boutique business model, there'll be many people who disagree with this with their booming franchise growth, was getting harder and harder to sustain with the rising price of talent and real estate, and that there weren't that many markets that had the population density and the willingness to pay of a New York City. So my thinking was our growth strategy was going to be to offer to grow the brand by bringing our experience to other people's facilities. So that was December 2019. COVID happened. I didn't realize those other facilities would be people's living rooms, but basically it was. And it became rooftops and pretty much any place else. But our new location that I referenced in New Jersey, we're inside of a new fitness concept called Drop Fitness. And it is basically an app-driven, download the app, now you're a member, open gym space, which you can use during off-peak hours just for downloading the app. But then there's also 4 boutique fitness brands that will be teaching classes under that same roof. Each one has a dedicated area and or studio. So the Fitting Room studio inside of Drop Fitness looks just like one of our company-owned stores, designed by the same architect even. We are training all the trainers. We provide all of the programming, but it's a straight-up revenue share for Fitting Room. And Drop Fitness employs the talent, they paid for the build out, it's their business model, they control pricing, the customer relationships. So
That's a
it'll be
new model.
really interesting. Yeah. So
So on that Drop
Yes.
Fitness, because I've heard it a few times, the other lady who was with us last night who has the is it Pilates or
Physique 57 bar,
yeah,
Jennifer?
bar,
Yes.
yeah. So she's in there, isn't
Yes,
she?
that's right.
And so it's essentially like it's a shell with 4 boutiques inside it. Is that right?
Yes, so it is a gorgeous facility.
Yeah, I'm
and
trying
so it has a kids club, it has a smoothie bar, it has
Okay.
open gym space, it has personal training space. All of that is Drop Fitness. They created it, design, control everything.
Right.
And then there's 3 group fitness rooms. So one is Physique 57, which will teach their bar classes. One is Fitting Room for our strength and high intensity classes. One is Humming Puppy, which is yoga. And then Mile High Run Club will teach classes in the treadmill space of the open gym space.
Right. And then how does the sort of membership model and do you kind of share the people that come cross-sell to the different modalities, or how does that work?
Yeah, so everybody will have to download the Drop Fitness app to join, the Drop community as a member. And then from there, they can buy class packages and or class memberships, which is all done through the Drop Fitness app. So the benefit for studios is there's all these shared resources, right? So in the traditional studio model, everybody's paying their own front desk, everybody's paying their own cleaning crew, everybody's paying
Back office, all the
their
things,
own
yeah.
software, marketing, you name it. So in this case, because there's so many shared resources, the classes can be offered cheaper than the neighboring standalone studios.
And I guess probably more profitable as well, I would.
Well, and
thought.
for me, I have no expenses, only a rev share. So there's only upside.
So risk on, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great. So you mentioned, did you move out of the facility because of real estate, or was it some other reason?
Oh, yeah, so let's talk about the Upper East Side. So the Upper East Side was actually Fitting Room's very first neighborhood. Our first studio was on the Upper East Side. About 3 years in, we moved to a bigger location on the Upper East Side in a building that was actually all stacked of different fitness concepts. So we were one of 4 fitness concepts in a building that was about 15 blocks away from the original studio. The year that we closed the original studio and opened the bigger studio, we basically got twice as much square footage for the same price because we went from a ground floor to a 4th floor. The business was incredibly successful in that space. Every year since, it declined. At first it was a small decline, then it was a little bit of a bigger decline, and by the time we got to the year before COVID, it was barely above break even. So part of the issue was competition just intensified like crazy on the Upper East Side of New York. It's like every fitness studio all of a sudden had 1 to 2 locations in that same neighborhood. We heard all day today, the percentage of people working out has not changed in decades.
Really?
So you have billions more doors where you can do fitness, all in the same very small geography. Even if each new concept takes just 1 client out of a class once a week, over time, when there's hundreds of new concepts in your neighborhood, that really depletes you. I think on top of that, going from a ground floor to a 4th floor really hurt. A big part of our new client acquisition is people just visibility, brand awareness, people sticking their heads in while they're going down the street and learning about the business. And so we went from a main avenue to a side street, a ground floor to a 4th floor. I think that hurt us. In addition, that particular neighborhood coming out of COVID was where we saw the highest percentage of our clients that moved out of the city were from that particular neighborhood. So there were a lot of forces. The business was, again, it was already, compromised a lot even pre-pandemic. We had a very friendly and collaborative landlord, so that actually really was painful to close that location because they really partnered with us and were very fair. But just in terms of, we had to focus very limited resources into the highest potential parts of the business. So we made that, it was a tough decision, but it allows us to focus the human resources and limited financial resources into the parts of the business that we believe have higher profit potential.
And what are those then? What are those areas that you'll be?
Yeah, so the other physical locations for one, so we still have studios on the Upper West Side and Flatiron in New York City, investing in the training for this, suburban location, which is our first licensed partnership. To the extent that we see suburban acceptance of the concept and, success with that model, then I will want to replicate that. As much as I can. And then we're also building out right now our first external facing certification. So since Fitting Room's opened, it's always been a place where other trainers come and work out. Some of our trainers have been recruited by the biggest names in fitness, which is a huge compliment because we train people incredibly well and they're just the best of the best. And so knowing that there are so many instructors out there who are trying to build their own brands privately now, whether it's virtual or independently in physical locations, and gyms that offer group fitness but don't have incredible training programs. We are launching a certification for how to teach kettlebells in small groups and/or classes, which is, I believe, a huge white space, but also a huge opportunity. So,
it's amazing. It's great. So how's your feeling going forward? We've been through some rough times. We're going forward. Overall, there's been a lot of optimism. We've had over 400 people at the conference here in New York. Of course, tough times. Everyone's been through it. Everyone's exhausted. We've been stretched in new ways. But what would you say is your outlook, I guess?
So I think from an industry perspective, I always say fitness is large and growing. Yeah. That's an exciting space to be. I do think, I have hope that we can increase that penetration rate of the percentage of people who work out, and that health scares like COVID help people realize that. I do think it's going to be a slower rebound. We all have seen that bar chart of the fitness industry, the recession-proof industry, in like every investor deck and analyst deck ever. And I think COVID was incredibly disruptive. I personally think that there's going to be a big sort of like disassembly of many of the brands and constructs as we know them, and then a rebuilding. But I think that we'll get there. I think it will be bigger and better, but I think right now people want to have fun. Like I think fitness has to play in that it's filling my bucket in terms of my social connection, in terms of my social wellness, in
and
terms
feel
of
good
like,
and not
yes.
so much because it was very hard for a while,
Yes,
wasn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
Like it's not cool to like work hard, play hard right now, even though like, I mean, that's kind of like the way I live my life. But it's not cool right now. Right now, it's much more cool just to like live your best life and be happy and do what makes you happy. And so I think for my brand and all of our fitness brands, we have to move our brands into that territory in people's wallet and mind.
Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much
Amazing.
for, I know we grabbed you before you were running out the door.
Yes.
So thanks very much. Best of
Thanks.
wishes.
Thank you so much.
Always.
You're amazing.
So much
Keep
fun to
going.
talk to
Keep
you.
going.